Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, Country Cow Designs. I just wanted to make a short video to show you an alternative way to do the front pockets for the Trekoda backpack, which is one of my patterns. So the standard backpack, it has a flap with a slip pocket, and then it's also got this zip pocket just here, which could be a cargo pocket. So in this alternative version, I'm just going to show you how to do just one plain zip pocket. So it's just going to be like that, and I'm just going to show you the front panel. So if you want to do the rest of the backpack, you can watch my standard tutorial on how to do that. This method also just means that there's less in the bottom seam, which can make it slightly easier to attach the base later on. So some people might prefer it for that reason. So it'll just be a quick video just to show you how I've done this. Okay, so if you're going to do this different front pocket style, you're going to need to cut out your pattern pieces quite differently. So first of all, you need to ignore pieces A, B, C, H, G, M and N. So those are all the pieces that are associated with the normal pocket, and I'll make sure that it's in the description to tell you which pieces you need to ignore. You also won't need the magnetic snaps. So instead of that, what you're going to do is cut an extra K piece. So this is the back panel. You're just going to cut another one of these to use for the front. You should also have your matching foam. Then what you're going to need to cut in addition is your front pocket piece. This is the one that's going to be shown on the exterior. And this needs to be 8 inches tall by 9.5 inches wide. And on the back, I've got some black woven interfacing. So that's just SF101, G700, woven fuse, anything like that. And then I've also got some medium fusible fleece just to give it a bit more structure. And then for the lining piece of the pocket, this is going to be a little bit shorter so it's not caught in the seam allowance, which should make it easier to sew your base on later on. So for this one, I've made it 7 inches tall by 9.5 inches wide. And lastly, I've got my zipper. So you'll need this to be at least 9.5 inches wide. I've made mine 11 inches. This is purely because I like to have my zip hanging off the end. So that means that when I'm sewing it into place, I don't need to move the head because I can just leave it on the far end. So I've already sewn a few stitches across the end to make sure that the zip head won't fall off. And the first thing that we're going to do is grab that exterior pocket piece. So this is the one that is 8 inches tall. Now you're going to place your zip right sides together with the top and just clip that into place. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew through this with an eighth of an inch seam allowance. So I'm just going to baste it into place. So that's now sewn into place there. Now you're going to grab your lining piece and you want to put it right sides together with the other pocket piece with the zip sandwiched in between. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew through this close to the zip tape. So I'm going to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance and I'm just going to sew through all of the layers. Okay, so now that that is stitched into place, I'm just going to turn it so that the fabrics are wrong sides together. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to press it with the irons. I'm going to press the lining away from the zip, and I'm also going to press the exterior away from the zip. And that's the bit where I really like to have my zip head hanging off the edge because it just makes it a lot easier to get a neat finish. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to top stitch through all of this with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. So there I've got my top stitch through the pocket. So now you need to grab your front panel piece. So this is pattern piece K that I said we need to have an extra one of. Now what I've done is I've measured 7.5 inches up and I've made a line, and I'm not completely sure if you can see that line that I've just made there. So what I'm going to do is, that's how the pocket's going to sit on the front. So I'm just going to flip it up and I'm going to line up that zipper with the line that I've made. So if you want to, you can just use a quilting ruler and just make sure that that's nice and straight. And then I'm just going to clip it into place. Now if you want to, you can use a little bit of glue. Just be careful if you do, that you don't get the glue seeping out the top. So now I'm going to sew on the zipper just here. I'm going to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance to sew all the way along this line. Okay, so I sewed with a 1/4 inch seam allowance along the zipper tape. But I'm making this bag for my nephew, and he's quite a destructive little guy, so I've also sewn with an 1/8 of an inch just to give the zipper a bit more reinforcement if he's pulling on the pocket a lot. So you want to flip that down. Now you can see how this pocket's going to look. So hopefully this exterior piece will be just a tiny bit too long. You can just see that it's just a tiny bit too long, so that's great, because what we wanted was for it to be longer rather than too short. And the lining piece behind is a bit shorter, so when we sew the base in later, it's not going to get caught. So what we need to do right now is we just need to clip this lining in place, and then what we're going to do is we're going to sew it along the bottom. Because it's not going to be caught in that seam later, we need to close up the bottom of the pocket now. So I'm just going to sew right along here where this lining meets, and I'm going to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, so that pocket is now sealed at the bottom. So what we're going to do next is just baste everything together. So if you open up your zip now, you can see that at the bottom it's nicely sewn up. So what we want to do is just trim that front pocket to make sure that it's matching the rest of the front panel. Okay, so you're going to baste it onto the foam. So you just want to make sure that your pocket is sitting nice and flat, and just clip it around the entire perimeter. So that's clipped all around and ready to baste. Just make sure before you do that you pull your zipper pull into the centre, so that when you're basting around, it's not going to be caught on the outside. Now I recommend, if you're not using a walking foot, baste it from the foam side. That will stop it from stretching, whereas if you baste it all together from this side, then it's going to stretch some of the fabric and throw your pocket out a little bit. So there it is, all basted. Now you just want to trim off this end of the zip. And what I like to do with my zips is just to use a lighter on the end to stop them from fraying. So I just do that quickly. And there you go. That is your front pocket. So you can carry on making up the rest of the Trekoda backpack using the main tutorial.